I could rant about the changes to Devil Dino. It would be easy. I could point out a lot of unfair treatment in this game, a lot of bias, whatever. But I'm just not in the mood for that right now. I just want to make a video that's fun and talking about what ifs. So instead of like complaining about stuff, I'm going to talk about how I would have rebalanced Devil Dino if I had the power to control what the dev team was doing. Because I feel like that's just a more fun video idea. So with that said, let's get into it and talk about how I would have rebalanced Devil Dino, starting off with the most obvious thing in my opinion, which was his percent damage. Because one of the biggest issues with Devil Dino's kit was that when he was facing other Vanguards, his damage would spike heavily, like to an extreme degree, to an unbalanceable degree. So what I would have done is I would have taken his percent damage and I would have gotten rid of that, and I would have made it so all his damage, no matter the role he's attacking, no matter how much health they have, is universal. I would have made his bleed the exact same. I would have made his self-sustain the exact same. That way it would be easier to balance the character's stats as needed as well in the future, because maybe he's doing a little too little self-sustain. You need a bit more self-sustain. Well, now the self-sustain is an individual stat. We can buff that up a bit without increasing the damage. Or maybe he needs more damage and less self-sustain, so we can lower the self-sustain a bit and increase the damage a bit, or increase the bleed a bit as needed, which I feel like would just be easier for future balancing as well, because percent damage is always in that awkward area. If it's not tied to a rare ability you don't see super often, it can generally cause a lot of problems. So that's the first thing I would have done. And this obviously would affect his frenzy bite, this would affect his regular bite, this would affect his beam. And speaking of his beam, the second thing I would change is how his grounded work. First of all, I would make his grounded effect very similar to the things, but I would also make it a meter build up. So you have to hold like the beam on him for like maybe, let's say roughly 5 seconds to fully build up the status effect, and then they get grounded. And after that, once the grounded effect, which could be like 2-3-ish seconds, wears off, they're immune to grounding for around about 2 seconds. This way, he can't just ground loop someone. He actually has to dedicate his time beaming a single person to ground them, and then afterwards he can't just start again immediately. He has to wait a few seconds. That would actually give the diver or the flyer or whatever, whoever he's trying to ground, a chance to retreat if they manage to survive his onslaught after being grounded in the first place, or even if they see the meter start building up, they can get out of dodge because it's not an instantaneous effect. So that's the thing I would have done with his beam. Maybe I would have given it a little more range as well, because I've always felt the beam had a little too little range. It could have used like maybe 17 meters instead of 15 meters. That's a little bit more range, you know. I feel like, because that's generally the 20-meter point is where a lot of fights are battled anyway. And so if he pushes a little forward, he's not just going to get completely minced forward in that 15-meter range. But that would be like a minor side buff potentially for a future. It wouldn't be like an immediate priority. The next thing I would do, and probably the final thing I would do with the character, is I would make it so his grab and the jump attached to it are separate abilities, and I'd make it so they can't be active at the same time. So if he's grabbing someone, he can't use the jump ability, and if he's using the jump ability, grabbing someone will immediately make him start falling downwards. That way, it makes it so he can't do the little bunny hop tech that would drag someone from one half of the arena all the way to the other, which was really problematic with the character. In addition, it would be actually a secret stealth buff, since now the jump isn't tied to a bite. You can't easily just body block him if he's attempting to get away, which would allow him to have a bit of getaway tool. So it would improve his survivability on the side without giving him a direct damage buff, while also decreasing the most problematic part of his grab. As for the shield change, I'm going to be dead honest, I don't even think that was a bad change. I don't actually have as big an issue with the shield change, if I'm honest with you. I feel like 12 seconds isn't that ridiculous. Like, it's annoying, but it's something you can adapt to. So overall, that's sort of what I would have done with the character. Some very particular, exact changes that focus on the actual problems of the kit without just completely nuking him into the ground. And it also, in the future, would make him easier to balance, since now he's no longer relying on very janky mechanics that have always sort of been weird in the balance of the game. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed this little what if, and you might want to see more, maybe see more of this content in the future, or even you have your own ideas on how you would have rebalanced the character or would rebalance another character, leave a like, maybe leave a comment. And if you want to see more content from this channel for some reason, subscribe. Peace out. Peace.